one. Tate Patrice Motsepe has a deal going. I'll give you the background. There's a French broadcaster owned by Vivendi called Canal Plus. They own beIN Sports, for those who watch French football. They own 31% of Multichoice as it stands. But because of that ownership, it triggers a mandatory offer, and they want to buy out Multichoice. But of course, we've got rules in the company's rules. There's rules that you can't have more than a 20% voting and board representation. So you can't have 20% of the voting rights and 20% of the board, right? You can't have that. So Canal Plus looked for another different deal. And this is where Tate Patrice Motsepe comes in, Dr. Patrice Motsepe comes in. The deal that he's been brought into with Canal Plus is that they're going to create another company where Tate Motsepe would be the majority shareholder, even though the voting would then be more to Canal Plus, but he'd be the majority shareholder. And if that company buys out the rest of Multichoice, then that means that they don't break the rule of 20% voting, right? So that is the deal in place right now. And I want to talk about this from three aspects. Number one, the business of it. We all know that Tate Motsepe is an incredible businessman. He's got a lot of companies under him. He worked his way up. He's now the CAF president after all of this. But this is very shrewd in one way. The broadcasting rights, there was a deal with beIN that Tate Motsepe blew up. They did come back together, but they brought in New World TV, which is the broadcast partner for CAF right now. The loan was guaranteed by Sanlam, which happens to be one of the companies that Motsepe has a holding in, Tota Motsepe has a holding in. And now this deal means that they probably buy Multichoice, and then they also might buy New World TV and own the rights outright as Multichoice in this new company that Motsepe is going to be creating with Canal Plus, which is an incredible move, The secondary aspect that I want us to look at it from is Africa. This might be a better move for Africa because it allows Multichoice to now do a lot more things. If they're owned by Vivendi and Canal Plus, they're going to have access to a lot more money. And maybe the offerings, the sponsorships, and all of those things that they can do will go up. The only problem is that this is a European company that is, I don't want to say sneaking their way. They're getting in into Africa and into one of the biggest sports rights holders in the world. So they're going to be European rights holders, and then also from the African side, they're going to run the rights. So that gives a lot of money back to Europe, which is a bit of an issue. But then the third place to look at it is South Africa. If Tate Motsepe and this company takes control of Multichoice, they'll be in charge of Supersport. The offerings in Africa, they will have a say in Supersport United as one of the things that they'll have, and DStv as a whole, which is very interesting. Part of the thing that they're saying is that he's going to have to step down as CAF president, one of the things. But can you imagine South Africa where the first division is the Motsepe Foundation, first division. The one below that, ABC Motsepe. The Motsepe Foundation sponsors a lot of things within our football. Then you've got the CAF tie-in and also now multimedia broadcasting rights, which in a normal world, you wouldn't want to see, because that's how you create a monopoly. That's how you do crazy things. That's how you control football. But in this case, Tate Motsepe has shown that even though these are capitalistic moves, buying teams, going to the top of Africa, doing all of that stuff, and you could argue that he's made something back from it, a lot back from it, he's also given a lot. And wherever he's gone, he's built. Other people would have bought the Sundowns and used the Sundowns to get into SAFA and then get into CAF and maybe get into the presidency and not do anything with Sundowns. Another person would have taken Sundowns, bought the Sundowns, got into SAFA, got into CAF, got to CAF presidency and not done anything for CAF. He's restructured many of the deals, and while you might argue that one of the deals that he restructured is going to do with exactly this multi-choice ownership, but you can't complain that he hasn't done a lot for African football in his stint as CAF president. So on one hand, yes, you argue about the competition part of it. Is it right that one person or a group of people or a group of companies, in this case, has so much control of everything to do, a lot to do with African football, particularly a lot to do with South African football? And then also, you could argue that the deal that they made with BN at CAF laid the foundations for this move. But on the other hand, he's been good to us. And if nobody else is going to step in, not your Aliko Dangotes, not your Rupes, not any of those people are going to step in and possibly put the broadcaster into a better place, it has to be somebody that has the record of already doing so much good work within African football. And maybe that's where Tate Motsepe, man, we turn a blind eye to some of the competition questions. What's going to be interesting is that the SuperSport deal with EPSL is going to be ending in the next couple of years, if I'm not mistaken. And they're going to have to go renegotiate with Multichoice and SABC and maybe other parties that would want to form part of this and hold the PSL rights. Dr. Ivan Khoza is said to be leaving, and he'll probably be retiring in the next few years. Will the PSL be strong enough? Will the PSL be strong enough to negotiate in a fair place with Tate Motsepe? Will they negotiate with the best of the PSL's interests? But the bigger question is, whoever is the leader at that point, right? Can you turn down a deal from Multichoice, who just so happens to be owned in part by the person who's funding both of your leagues below, who has given SAFA a lot of money to fix problems? Think about the Banyana problem through the Motsepe Foundation, not him directly, and his ties to CAF already. And again, do we want the rights to go to a company that is also controlled by a European company, as Canal Plus would be in this instance? These are all questions that are going to be very, very, very important in the next coming years. Should this deal come through? Should Dr. Ivan Khoza step down? Where does the PSL go? Is it time for the PSL to go out, get their own cameras and equipment and all of that stuff at a high cost, produce their own product and sell it to Multichoice, sell it to Canal Plus, sell it to SABC? Or are we going to hitch ourselves again to a Multichoice deal in this vein? And then, of course, there's other conflicts of interests. Tate Motsepe, whether we like it or not, his family, he still has his board seats there at Sundowns. Great. Still has his board seats. So will it be fine for him to have a stake in the broadcaster, a stake in Mamelodi Sundowns, a stake in SuperSport by virtue of the ownership of this team, the different sponsorships? Can that go through? Last I heard, Canal Plus has tabled the last offer and it's going to be accepted. So we could well be seeing the new owner of Multichoice on top of a lot of companies that he owns and other sports teams, Bob Blue Bulls, Bob Poland. They also get affected because of this SuperSport deal. There's so many amazing things, amazing questions that we can ask here. And again, yes, you ask the competition questions, the monopoly questions. Is it right for somebody to control this much in football? But then, on the other hand, he's been good to us. He's been good to football. He's been good to South African football, African football as a whole. Why should we expect that he wouldn't be good somewhere else? Good in Mamelodi, good in South Africa, good for Africa. maybe it's going to be good for broadcasting as well. Maybe the things we cry about in terms of getting rights deals to SuperSport, broadcasting on SuperSport, advertising on SuperSport, the programming on SuperSport, for example, will now be geared towards Africa, will now be expanded, will now have that lean where now we'll be able to do more things that have been gatekept by the PSL, by SuperSport, by SABC, especially for us content creators, especially for us who love the game. It's so hard to get access to all of these things.